What's going on, guys? It's Alex here from the GolfMagic channel. Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn notifications on so you can keep up to date with all our content that comes out every week. Now today we've got a little bit of a different video for you. We're going to put 3 Callaway drivers from the last several years to the test to see which one's right for your game. Now the 3 drivers we've chosen are the new Callaway Big Bertha B21 driver, the driver that's supposed to be the anti-slice club, the Callaway Maverick, the main release of 2020, and we've chosen finally the Callaway Rogue SubZero as the final club. Now I know this was released quite a long time ago, but it is relevant as the 3 drivers we've chosen are all in a different type of playing range. The Callaway Rogue SubZero is obviously the lowest spin model, and then the Maverick and the Callaway Big Bertha B21 are kind of in the same category, but the B21 is more of an anti-slice model. Now with this testing, I put the same shaft in every single club, so we're testing just the head only here. And there were some very, very interesting results. So first up, we're going to look at the Callaway Big Bertha B21 driver. Now the first thing to mention with this club is its stunning head cover with a nice blue glossy finish, which certainly trumps the 2 other competitors in this video. The overall looks of this club is really refreshing. It is similar to the 816 Big Bertha model that was released several years ago, but it still has that Big Bertha vibe about it, separating itself from the new modern releases over the past few years. Looking down on the club, the shape is a bit different with a blue glary finish, along with a red alignment feature that makes me believe this club is not made for low handicap players. Now, I'm not going to bore you too much with the details on the technical side of this club, but if you'd like to see that, then make sure you check out our previous video where we did a full in-depth review of the Big Bertha B21 driver. Now with the performance, I wasn't too sure what to make of this driver prior to testing, as I was kind of uncertain what the target market was. After testing, however, it was quite clear that it wasn't me. Although I hit this club very straight, and it was certainly an enjoyable club to hit with some great shots, I had far too much spin for me. I was getting about 3,500 RPM, which for my drives is about 1,000 RPM too high. Now the ideal RPM range is 2,000 to 3,000 RPM, but with the shaft that's included with this, the 50 gram RC8 shaft, I imagine that's going to be quite difficult to get. So because of that, I would suggest this club to someone with a mid swing speed and maybe a mid to high handicap range as well, as it does have that draw bias that certainly alleviates those slices. Now secondly, let's look at the Callaway Maverick driver, the big release of 2020. Now the Callaway Maverick is a personal favourite of mine for looks. This is a really modern club with a somewhat outlandish orange colour scheme that can be customised if you're not a fan. The overall design of the club is very compact and a very positive advancement of the Epic Flash driver, its predecessor, which was a bit too flashy if you pardon the pun. The head from address is really appealing and certainly instills confidence in any player. The looks of this club would suit any handicap range for an amateur golfer, but perhaps more to the low to mid range because of the compact, small looking head. Now the performance of this club is where it gets quite interesting. I hit a lot of balls with the Maverick at Hilton Park Golf Centre, perhaps more than the other ones, just because of the results that I was receiving. There were several things to note here. So compared to the Big Bertha B21, I had about a 10-yard increase in distance. I wasn't too surprised by this, and it is kind of expected because if you look at the data from the SkyTrack launch monitor, my spin was a bit lower, staying kind of inconsistently around that 3,000 RPM range. This is still a bit too high for me, so I wouldn't put this in the bag. Nevertheless, it's still interesting to see that my swing speed went up a few miles an hour, which I wasn't actually expecting, as the only change there was in the club head, not in the shaft or anything else. My performance with this club though was a bit all over the place, to be honest. My dispersion was more or less just awful. I can probably tie that down to me just being pretty rubbish at golf at that day, but it did perform worse than the other 2 clubs quite significantly. Weirdly enough though, I felt the most confident over the ball with this club, but the results did not put it in the #1 spot, or really anywhere near. If I was being naive, I'd choose this club over the B21 purely because I like how it feels and looks more than that driver. But if I had any sort of golf sense, I would obviously choose the B21, as it did have a much better dispersion circle with still a healthy carry for a driver. But with us amateur golfers, we always choose distance over accuracy. Overall, I'd recommend this driver to pretty much anyone really. It definitely has all the features available for any type of golfer. It's just important to try out any other club beforehand to make sure that it suits your game and get custom fitted so you can improve that dispersion, accuracy and distance angle. Now finally, let's look at the Callaway Rogue SubZero. Now, the Callaway Rogue SubZero, where to start? I love everything about this club. The looks make it a real player's driver in my opinion. The minimalistic colour scheme attests to its tour preference, and the lack of anything too drastic on the actual club head really adds to this. From address, it looks quite similar to the Maverick actually, with a small alignment arrow, which is all personal preference but I'm a big fan of. Similar to the Maverick, it is a very compact head, but maybe even more so than the Maverick. It doesn't look like the easiest club to hit, so this may not be suited to high handicap players, but it's still a great looking driver for a club that is actually several years old. But how will this club perform compared to these new release drivers? So with this club being the SubZero version of the Rogue, this means that it's supposed to have lower spin than the main release, the Rogue itself. And lower spin it had. I had much more consistent and positive results with this driver. My spin rate was around 2000 to 2500 RPM with great launch angle as well. You can see on the SkyTrack launch monitor that I was averaging around 320 to 330 yards with this club, which is about 30 yards more than the Big Bertha B21 and 10 to 15 yards more than the Maverick. My dispersion was no better than the Big Bertha to be honest, perhaps a little worse, but that's understandable with this club being a tour unforgiving driver. Now this club is certainly not as forgiving as the Big Bertha and even the Maverick, but it did have better results because of how I personally swing the golf club. I hit my worst shot out of the bunch on the whole day with this driver and lost about 60 yards in distance, but it did still go pretty straight, which is impressive for a driver that is labelled as pretty unforgiving. Because of my results with this, I wouldn't really recommend this club to any range of handicap golfer unless I specifically know their game. If you are a good driver of the ball but struggle with high spin, this is pretty spot on for a club to try. For my game, this club far supersedes the new releases, which shows it's all about the swing and not about how expensive the club is. So guys, after hitting those 3 drivers at Hilton Park Golf Centre, it's difficult for me to come to an actual conclusion of what I think is right for your game, because I don't know your game. For me, I would rank the 3 drivers as follows. Number 1, Callaway Rogue SubZero. It's perfect for my game, it's actually in my bag already, and it's going to be very difficult for me to change that. Number 2 is the Callaway Maverick. I do still think that the Big Bertha may be better than this, but I just like how this club looks. The Big Bertha is too anti-slice for me, and I will never have that club in my bag. The Maverick, I think I could, just because it looks great and it still performs pretty well. And then number 3 is the Callaway Big Bertha B21. It's a great club and it's definitely going to do very well for a lot of amateur golfers, but it's not the club for me. Now, with that being said, I will always say, and us at GolfMagic will always say to you, get fitted. There is not a club that can fix your swing instantly, but there is a club that can help you. But you need to go to a custom fitter and find out what's best for your game. Nevertheless, these 3 clubs are still very good drivers to put in your bag, and if you want to have a hit, I recommend going down to your local pro shop or your local driving range and seeing how they perform. If you enjoyed this video guys, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, because we're doing a lot of driver comparisons in the next few months. Subscribe for more content including interviews, giveaways and a lot more. And I'll see you at the next video.